Hello and welcome back to the Football Fellowship podcast. My name is Mevin.
And my name is Toby.
And we're back reviewing Gameweek 5 in the Premier League. And most importantly, me and Toby are back together on the same episode of the podcast. Finally, it's been a couple of weeks since we've been recording.
It's been far too long, man.
It's been far too long.
We're finally reunited.
Our schedules haven't aligned. I was on holiday, then you went on holiday.
Yeah.
But we're back now for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, we've had our rest. We've had a bit of sun.
Yes, It's our own international break, We've all had to take a week off. Where have you been?
We need it. I went to Malta for
had a good
week,
time?
which was very nice, very nice. I recommend it to everyone for a little holiday. Lovely sea, lovely sun, good food, and we were there when they had their international game against North Macedonia. I wanted to go because I reckon it would be fun to see like a smaller international game, but we were actually on the other island, Gozo, at that point, so we couldn't make it.
Well, I'm sorry for all our Maltese and
North Macedonia
teams fans watching. Toby just disrespected both your countries.
No. I'm smaller as in population, Mev, not as in
Population.
size, not as in size of the football team.
Oh yeah, okay.
It's a very small island, Malta. It's only got a population of 500,000. So.
And you still weren't able to make the game.
Well, I couldn't make the trip over. Unfortunately.
It's fine. Toby doesn't care. It's all right.
Next time I'll be there as an ultra.
That's okay.
How about yourself? Where were you off to?
Yeah, went to Rome with the family. It was lovely. I'll be honest, I was sick of basilicas by the end of it. It's just a fancy church. And by the end of it, like, there's someone on every corner. And initially it's like, first few days, it's really beautiful. And then it's like, oh my God, there's another one. It's like, what's going on? But yeah, the Vatican City was lovely and the Colosseum and all that was lovely. You went the year before, didn't you?
Yeah. We loved Rome. It was great. Colosseum is so good.
Yeah.
It is like, it's one of those things you think, oh, is it going to be sort of like overrated or like it's just a bit like touristy? But once you're there and you sort of read all about it, it's so interesting.
Yeah, and we went on the first Sunday of the month, so it was actually free to go to the Colosseum.
Oh, nice, love that.
Yeah, we did get there at 8:15 in the morning, and then we were still in the queue 2 hours later, but we got it for free, so I guess it was technically worth it.
You take it.
Yeah, didn't see Mourinho. It's a bit of a shame, but it's all right. Didn't think going to see Roma was a family-friendly occasion. But maybe next time, we'll go. I'll be an ultra there, with the megaphone, with shirt off, in the crowd. But yeah, enough about European football. We don't care about European football. We are here.
We want the British football.
We want the English football, and the Premier League has been providing again with lots of goals and lots more controversy. So let's start off with Man United 1, Brighton and Hove Albion 3, which was not really a shock result, was it?
Not particularly. I mean, Man United haven't been playing as well as I think we thought they would this season. They weren't obviously the most consistent team last season, but I think a lot of people still would have predicted them to be in that top four come the end of the season. But just hadn't had a good start to the season. Brighton really have, despite losing a few key players, and it was 3-0 at Old Trafford. I think last season we saw when Brighton won 2-1 at Old Trafford right at the start of the season, and people were shouting for the Glazers to be out. Man United are in a crisis, and now this season it's Brighton went 3-0 up at Old Trafford.
Yeah, I just thought going into the game, I just thought Brighton were going to do something. Although in my predictions from the last one, I said I thought Man United would respond, and I did think they'd respond in some way, but the fact that, like you said, Brighton went 3-0 up. Brighton had 56% possession at Old Trafford. I just thought they were absolutely dominant and in chance creation, in shots they had, and United couldn't even lay a glove on them. I mean, initially I thought it was a bit strange from Ten Hag to go, he played like a 4-4-2 diamond, because obviously of the issues they've been having at right wing, which we'll touch on in a bit. And the fact that like McTominay came to the team, and I thought maybe the midfield would be a bit shored up, but the fact that, Brighton were just very easily dominant in wide areas, which is the issue that you have with a 4-4-2 diamond. I did expect more from McTominay. I thought, with his energy in midfield, that he would be able to get around the pitch a bit more, but he looked really poor. I thought Eriksen was poor. And, apart from maybe Rashford and Højlund up top, who were bright at times, but defensively, United were all over the place.
Yeah, they really were. It was another game where I think they don't have that midfield control yet. They don't really have any balance in the midfield, and it seems like that's where they are losing a lot of their games. I think Pascal Gross had another amazing game. He's so good. I think he finally was in the Germany squad actually in the last internationals, which was really good to see. How old is he now? 31. He had another good game. He scored a brilliant goal, that sort of dummy to absolutely send Martinez. I just saw that, and it was one of those where you're just like, geez, like, yeah, fair play. But he really dominated the midfield for Brighton, and Brighton still didn't have what you would say on paper maybe is their strongest team.
Yeah.
There was no, Ferguson didn't start, Estupinian obviously wasn't in the squad. You had a Dingra out on the right wing, who we've seen sort of glimpses on, but I don't think has actually started yet this season. And it almost looks like exactly the same Brighton as we've seen this side, despite the changes in personnel. And yeah, Man United just didn't really have much chance.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even know where Man United go or what they do next, because at the time of recording, it's Monday, and Tuesday they're going to be going up against Bayern Munich. And you'd expect that they would absolutely destroy the defence the way it's been performing at the moment. I did think that Martinez was a doubt going into the game against Brighton, so the fact that he was fit, I thought going into the game was a massive boost. But it proved to not matter at all, because he was as poor as the rest of the defence. There are question marks over Onana's ability to shot stop. Some crazy stat, like he's conceded 6 of the 9 shots on target he's had on his goal, so which I think is a crazy stat, especially considering David De Gea was so good for United last year, Golden Glove winner. Questions maybe have to be asked, although I do think in terms of playing the ball at the back, Onana is clearer and obviously much better than De Gea, but you know, shot stopping wise, maybe he is to be questioned. He got fingers to a couple of the goals, couldn't quite keep him out of the net, and would De Gea save them? Potentially.
I think that might be sort of the problem with Onana, maybe, is we didn't see much of his shot stopping at Inter and also this season for United because he's on the ball so much. It doesn't really give chances to the teams to shoot as much, so we don't get to see that much from him. A lot of his players obviously around him coming forward with that ball. And yeah, like you said, a couple of the goals, it was, I don't know if he's like, I don't know how tall he is, but it seemed like he was like, just didn't even get a big spring, or he's not the tallest, and like the dives just didn't really seem to be going near towards the ball.
He is 6'2", but I didn't know what you mean. It's almost as if he's reacting too late.
Yeah.
Or he's like, you know when you got a rubbish goalkeeper goal and he's like, you dive and you pretend as if you're going to get there. It's kind of like that.
Yeah. I think he's one of the best keepers in the world still, probably, absolutely. You would say. But yeah, but on the ball, he's been amazing this season. But it has been some question marks, especially coming down from De Gea, maybe. Yeah,
I mean, and the fact that the whole situation has been helped with United's injuries. Wan-Bissaka's got a hamstring injury. Apparently, that's going to keep him out for 2 months. They had to play Serge Reguilon on a left back because obviously Shaw and Malacia are out injured. Varane's out injured as well. So really, apart from Martinez and Onana, the whole back line has changed because you can't. Well, maybe Delo at right back. Sorry. But even then, the players ahead of them playing United with the diamond, McTominay playing, Eriksen playing. I mean, in a way, they kind of have a Sofian Amrabat-shaped hole in that team. So maybe the sooner they can get him that side to reassure that midfield, the better. But obviously, they have the issues out wide as well now. With Anthony out for being accused of situations we don't really want to talk about. The whole situation that Erik ten Hag is forced on Jadon Sancho, and Jadon Sancho is refusing to apologise for it. Was the diamond something that you would have gone for, or would you just maybe shoved a player out wide?
I think, especially with Ten Hag, he's obviously a manager, very strong on a system, and I feel like changing that system because the personnel is missing is always you have to go one or two ways, and I definitely wouldn't have predicted it would have been a system change as opposed to a personnel change, and maybe playing Garnacho or Pellistri on that right side. I know Garnacho is naturally on the left, but with Rashford there, he's kind of irreplaceable for that team. So yeah, I was quite surprised to see it be a system change, really. I think like you said, with all these injuries and everything, I think this Bayern Munich game couldn't really come at a worse time.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I mean, if you think about the players that they have in wide areas, I mean, Gnabry, Sane, Coman, you could even have Muller play out there, who's not the quickest, but so intelligent that he could rinse anyone on the day.
Musiala as well. If he wants to drift that wide, he does a lot. And yeah, that's best in that sort of that pocket of both those half spaces on the left and right of those players coming in. I think that's going to be so dangerous.
Yeah, and of course, that Harry Kane coming up against an English rival, he's going to be on the top of his game, and he's going to be wanting to get a goal as well. They've also got the storyline of Kim Min-jae against a team who potentially wanted to sign him as well. It doesn't look good. The thing I would say is, for some reason, I still have in my head, I'm scarred from the years of Ferguson, that it is still Manchester United. I sound like Gary Neville, I know, but I still do think that, on their day, they can do something. And it's obviously, when Ole Gunnar Solskjaer took over for Man United in that interim period, where they went to the Parc des Princes and beat PSG with that Rashford penalty. It was a bit of a shock and an upset. The infamous Rio, give him the contract, let him sign, put in whatever number he wants. So I know it's been 5 games, only 6 points, and the wins haven't been convincing. I still think it's early on. Players will come back from injury. I mean, to have this many players out is, it is difficult for any team to deal with. But I still think that the players that they have on the pitch, they need to improve. We haven't even mentioned like Amad Diallo, who probably would have started right wing if he was fit. Mason Mount as well in midfield. Martial is permanently in and out of the side. So I think there are players to come back. But what do you make of the criticism of Erik ten Hag, even prior to the game? Because obviously people were saying that this whole Sancho situation was caused by him. Where do you stand on him?
I think last season we really saw a good manager in Ten Hag, and I think he did really well with the squad he had, and he got a lot of good performances. He picked up a lot of points, and they ended up getting third, which I think was a really good finish for them, and the Carabao Cup as well. I think it was a great season last year, and I think a lot of that was down to Ten Hag. But it just seems at the moment that United are just in a bad way. I don't know what's changed. It doesn't feel like much has changed systematically or personnel in the earlier games in the season, even when they didn't have as many injuries as they do have now. And it gets that horrible sense of things starting to go wrong and then they're becoming worse and worse. Like this Sancho whole PR disaster, Sancho responding, then deleting his comments, Ten Hag shunning him out to train with the youth players, and even on his own, it's now come out, is just, I don't know. I understand the manager stamping his authority and not wanting people to mess around, but I think there's ways you do that internally. You don't come out and sham a player, especially for a club like Man United with a fan base like that. And even then, I don't think Sancho's responded in the best way. I saw he was kicked out of training, and now he was partying in New York, I saw.
Yeah.
And it's like, you've got to try and prove the manager wrong and try and get back into that side. Otherwise, he's so young, and it seems like such a downfall from his Dortmund days. He could be one of those players who burns out and is shunned away from United, goes to a smaller team, and then we don't hear from him much, which I really hope doesn't happen, because on his day, he's one of the best young players in Europe.
Yeah, I mean, arguably, England have so many talents, but arguably one of England's most exciting young talents when he is fit and on his day. So it could be one where I personally think Sancho kind of overreacted slightly, because like you said, you just don't respond to Ten Hag's comments, because I don't think there was too much to respond to. And then you just kind of go, okay, I want to speak to you Monday morning with the gaffer, and you just hash it out there behind closed doors, and then you get back to training, because now, with the allegations made against Anthony, Sancho would have been starting, and he would have been starting for a prolonged period of time, and so he would have had an opportunity to play anyway. But it just feels like really bad timing that this all happened at once. Obviously, Ten Hag has to stay for now, obviously, right?
Yeah, I don't think there's any other better options. I don't think it's going to last the whole season, the way they're playing. I think I think they need to it's one of those short-term fixes. I think once they get a good run of games under them, they should be okay. And I don't think getting Ten Hag out is the solution, even though I know a lot of Man United fans might not agree with the way that they're playing because of his style and because maybe of the way he's handled these situations. But I don't think sacking him is going to fix anything, to be honest, at the moment. At the moment, anyway. Yeah. We'll have to see, obviously, how long this sort of spell lasts for. Yeah,
I agree. Because I think he has been backed in the transfer market because they've overplayed on players, which has meant they haven't been able to spend on the amount of players that they needed to reinforce the squad. I think up front they're super light, and in midfield they needed a bit more, and defensively at centre back I think they need a bit more depth as well. And I also think that he's got so much credit in the bank from what he did last year, and the way he not only got the results but the way he improved the style of play, which I think is absolutely fair enough. I think there are question marks occurring, which I think are valid, because I think this record away to the clubs in the Big Six is an issue. I think the way he handles some things may be an issue. I think he just could be incredibly Dutch and he's just very straightforward. But that could be something he has to work on, because initially people loved the fact that he was super honest. So the fact that he's now making excuses, he's going to revert him back to a managerial type that he's not, something away from him naturally. But I just think he'll get the time he needs to try and make a change and make an improvement. Because as we saw even with David Moyes, I mean, unless it's mathematically impossible for them to make the Champions League, I think he will stay as manager of Man United, regardless of what happens up until then, unless it becomes an absolute disaster and they're like facing relegation, which is completely unacceptable for Man United. But I think staying with him is the right thing to do. But before we move on to, I just want to ask, what do you think the expectations should be for Brighton this year? Because obviously they're coming up against AEK Athens at home in the Europa League. Just being in the Europa League is a massive achievement for them. But where do you think the league position should be this year? What should they be aiming for?
I think it's still, to be honest, around that 6th to 8th mark. I think going into the season, I know we haven't got to that Europa League matches yet, where there's going to be more games, they're going to get more tired, more injuries. They're going to have really good squad management, which they seem like they've already done, despite only just playing in the Prem so far this season. I think it's still got to be their aim, because the way they're playing, their squad's still looking really good. They've actually probably improved it in some areas from last season. And yeah, I think they just need to keep it up. That Europa League group is a very tough group. That's almost like a Champions League level group some years, you would say. Ajax, obviously one of the best teams in the Dutch league. Marseille have still got some really good players.
Arguably the Europa League group of death.
Yeah, definitely. But I think they're good enough to get out of it. And I think they're good enough to really press on in that competition and keep that position of 6th to 8th in the league. I don't think they're going to drop that far to sort of the 9th, 10th. I don't think there is 8 or 9 teams better than them. I think they are still one of the stronger teams in the league. And I think I'm just really excited to see them every week. I don't think you can ever write them off in a game at the moment.
Yeah, I think that's fair. So let's move on then to Tottenham Hotspurs 2, Sheffield United 1, which was a very last-minute result for Spurs.
It was,
but the momentum continues, and they get another 3 points. What did you make of the game?
Yeah, I think we saw there was maybe that difference in the Burnley game and the difference in the Sheffield United game. I think they didn't play particularly better in the Burnley game. I think they were just really efficient in that game. They had really similar XGs. I think they were around sort of the 2 it was 2 to 2.5 almost for both games, but Spurs scoring 5 goals against Burnley. They took their chances really, really well. And then in this game, they just couldn't until the last 5 minutes of the game. Sheffield United held on pretty well. Spurs still really did dominate that game though. And it just took them longer, I think, to finish their chances. But fair play to Sheffield United getting a 1-goal lead. That was definitely their game plan. Try and sit back, absorb the pressure, and then punish Spurs where they could.
Yeah, and I think it's one where, Spurs defensively have been not poor, I'd say, but they've been willing to sacrifice the defensive aspects of the play to make sure that they score goals and entertain.
Definitely.
But I do think that eventually it's going to catch up with them. And Sheffield United almost caused a scare here for them, especially at home. Gustavo Hamer with a lovely goal, lovely finish with his left foot. And it is one where, I think Sheffield United are getting closer and closer, and they're showing more and more encouraging signs. And I did think that, Spurs may struggle to break them down. I gave you a shout out on last week's podcast because I said that, with their wide wing backs who like to tuck in and make it really compact in the middle of the pitch, that Spurs are going to struggle to break them down. And I did say that, maybe, they should start Richarlison up front because Son isn't that good with his back to go. And I was right, because Son had just one shot on target, one off target, no key passes. He only won one of his 3 ground duels, one of his 2 aerial duels, and he lost possession 8 times. And he was subbed, which I think is a really good indictment of Ange Postecoglou, because the fact that he's your captain, he's just forward, and he's your main goal threat. The fact that he's having a bad game and you're willing to take him off and admit to go, do you know what, he's not having a good game, but he needs to come off. We've seen so many managers over the years who are so stubborn to take off their key/best players that sometimes it hinders the team. And then after the game, all the fans are going, why aren't you taking them off? What are you doing? They're clearly having a bad game, but you just put too much faith in them.
Yeah.
But I respect Ange for being like, no, you're having a bad game, come off. Richarlison comes on, gets a goal and an assist, and absolutely turns that match around.
Yeah, it was fair play to Richarlison, because I know he's obviously been struggling this season, has probably been Spurs' worst player in the attack. He had that game against Brazil where I think they won 6-7-0. He didn't get a goal and he came off and obviously we saw pictures of him crying on the pitch, crying on the subs bench, and he's come out and said some comments that he's really been struggling recently, really been struggling with his confidence. And even though as an Arsenal fan, I was glad to see him score and get that assist, because I think on a personal level that must have been not just like a weight off of him, but also even further than that to lift. You could really see he was so gassed to get that and to get it in such a big game for Spurs, being 1-0 down to Sheffield United at home. If they would have lost that, it would have been really embarrassing for them. So I think for him to do that was a really big moment for him. We could see him potentially come back into the side and start. Kulusevski got the other goal, a really nice finish in the, what was it, the 101st minute, I think it was, in the end, 11th minute, really 11th minute stoppage time, I think it was. And it was a good escape for Spurs. They probably deserved to win the game overall. I think the only other takeaway from the game was Sheffield United's goal, where I think Postecoglou will be fuming with the way it went in when it was the long throw. And I think it was such a rookie, it's like such a basic error of letting that ball bounce in the box. I think as soon as we saw no Spurs, they either attacking it or mistiming their headers to try and clear it, bounced, fell at the back post, and almost at that point it's going to go in, and it's such a basic error. And it could be that defensive side, I still think, is something that could catch Spurs out this season.
Yeah, I think it's a very inexperienced back line. I mean, and one that hasn't played together that often. I mean, you go for Vicario, Porro, Romero, Mickey van der Ven, Udogie. I mean, Romero is meant to be the leader of that back four, essentially. But he's only, 24, 25? And obviously he's won the World Cup, but he hasn't achieved a lot in his personal career, in his club career, sorry. So, I think it's going to be one that's going to take time to evolve. And as they get older and play more games together, they're going to get better. But at this moment in time, they do look shaky at the back at times. And it kind of seems like they need something to reassure them. But I don't think they're going to do anything personnel-wise or tactically.
No.
I think it's just going to be player development, improve as defenders, improving the system, the way Ant wants to play, and then eventually they'll get better. Because I do see all of the entire back line, the potential is high.
Definitely.
So in maybe 3-4 years, we could say, Spurs have one of the best back lines. But at this moment in time, they are learning. So I think they've got that.
I think they've got maybe, I would probably say 3 out of 4 for me of the key areas Spurs. I would say on the ball in the attack, they look good. And off the ball in the attack, they look good as well. They're pressing really high. They're pressing really well. They've got a really clear structure of how they want to win that ball back. And then I would say the 3rd out of the 4 they have is the defence on the ball. I think their fullbacks are attacking really well. The centre-backs look really comfortable. And it seems like they have the space covered when they don't have it on terms of a counter, but I think they're still missing that defence off the ball. I think when teams start coming at them with possession, there's a lot of gaps, a lot of space, and the structure isn't quite there. And I also think when they do get countered, they do still look vulnerable, even though the system may look like it has covered, they are still a little bit all over the place. And I think if they can get that 4th final of defence off the ball covered, then they could be shoo-ins for top 4, I think. What do you think your expectations are for Spurs in this season now that we've seen sort of 5 games? I know it's still early. But...
Yeah. Well, I think the North London derby next week is massive for both teams. But I think for Spurs, for us to really be able to watch that game and go, right, Spurs, what are you going to do this season? And even if they say, hypothetically, go in and win that North London derby, I don't think they're a shoo-in for the league. I don't think I think potentially they could be contenders up until like January, February, possibly. But then maybe fall off at some point. Because I do worry if they have injuries. I mean, the depth of that squad. I mean, if one of the centre-backs is injured, I really struggle for that. I think they sold Davinson Sanchez. Eric Dyer is going to come in, but he's not. Andrew made it very blatantly clear he's not the centre-back that he wants at the club. I think at left-back, he would be Ben Davies, who's all right, but he's not as good on the ball as Udogie. I think, say, Maddison gets injured, and that is the big one for me because he has had injury troubles in the past at Leicester, especially last season as well and the season before. So if he does get injured, where is that creativity going to come from that Spurs side? I mean, you got Charlie Devine in the wings, but he's very young. I'm not sure if he's ready to come into that kind of pressure. I don't know. All the other midfielders are kind of more workmanlike, like Højbjerg, Bentancur. So I'm going to say that probably top 4 is where they should be going for. And if anything higher, then, just take it and go with it. I think, next year, if they get top 4, there's going to be a bit more pressure on them. People are like, so what are you going to do now?
Yeah.
I do feel like one where they've got to win a trophy eventually. I know we keep saying it with Spurs, but eventually they're going to have to, break that hoodoo off their back, and win a trophy. But are they ever going to be winning the league? I'm not sure. They've got a lot of young players, got a lot of good potential, but I just think just get to 4.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I predicted them to probably finish around that 8th, 9th at the start of the season because of the loss of Harry Kane. I didn't think they would hit it off as well as they have at the start of this season. I think they just need to keep the momentum going, not think about anything further than that. They haven't got European football to worry about. Just keep taking it game by game. They've got to keep that momentum going, because I could see potentially them being a side where if that momentum goes and they lose a game, we could see that intensity in that system have a few little cracks in it. That does tend to happen. It's sort of like a lot of new teams, they're going on sort of 5-6 winning runs and then they might drop off for a couple. But yeah, if they can keep it going, then all the best for Spurs, really.
Yeah, I think they have very much Liverpool 13-14 vibes, but just without a Suarez.
Yeah.
So they've got a Sturridge, a Sterling, a Gerrard, Coutinho, all of that. The defense is leaky, but they're going to do that.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of players with a lot of potential, and we're just going to see how they do.
Yeah.
Yeah. Should we move on then? Because I don't actually know the next team because it's not on my card.
We have got Man City 3, West Ham 1.
Yeah.
The other way around, it was a West Ham home game. West Ham 1, Man City 3.
Yeah. And another win for Manchester City.
Yeah. Even though we saw West Ham go 1-0 up.
We did, but it did feel inevitable. A bit like Thanos. Just like, when are Man City going to score? When is Erling Haaland going to score?
Yep.
And they did just that. I mean, I did think going into the game that maybe West Ham could do something, and it showed in the fact that they were 1-0 up. A good counter-attack from West Ham down Man City's left, West Ham's right. Kufal broke away from Doku, and then he got the ball into the back post.
Really nice cross.
It was a really nice cross and a lovely header, actually. The fact that, it was a bit of an iffy area in between where Ward-Prowse could have gone with his head, he could have gone with his foot, he could have tried to maybe hit it with his midriff or whatever, but in the end he went with it headed low down and he got in the bottom corner. And they went 1-0 up, and you thought, maybe they could do something.
Hold on. They could hold on. This season they've really sat back and braked really well.
Yeah,
it could have been a shock result.
They did it against Brighton, didn't they? They won 3-1 against Brighton. No one expected it. They didn't have much possession as well. But the issue was that Erling Haaland was still getting chances. He had an XG at the end of the game of 2.56, and he only ended up scoring 1 goal.
Yeah.
So it was one where, you did feel like it was inevitable, and it was in the end.
Yeah, he got his goal, the last goal of the game. And Man City's XG of 3.6 over the whole game compared to West Ham's 0.9 pretty much sums it up perfectly. Almost matches the scoreline in the end, so it was definitely a deserved win. For Man City, I think the takeaways from this game, there wasn't too much different to how they normally play, but I think one bright spark that we definitely saw that we didn't see too much of last week was Jeremy Doku.
Absolutely.
I think we finally have seen just what he's about. He is such an aggressive, attacking winner. I wouldn't say he's a like-for-like replacement for Mahrez, but I would say at the moment in the club, he is the most sort of classic winger, you would say, someone who's just going to pick up the ball and really dribble, and he scored a really nice goal in the end.
Yeah, it was a lovely finish as well, playing on the left-hand side as well, which I thought was a bit slightly surprising because I expected him more to stay on the right-hand side and keep the width, but I suppose playing on the left and the right just shows how good a player he is. He can just do it wherever, and like I said, his finish was absolutely lovely as well. And it's just another Man City player who's come into that side, fit in really well, along with Mateo Kovacic, who missed the game because of a slight niggle. He also set in perfectly. But one player who I thought did alright, but I do have my eye on, is Mateus Nunes when he came on, because he came on and played right wing for Foden when he came off the pitch. And I thought he wasn't great, but also didn't expect to be starting on the right wing. I know for Wolves he played like left mid, right mid, and that's not normally his natural position. He was playing in the middle of the park, which I thought is where he was going to be playing. But it's interesting the fact that he's playing on the right wing. I think it's another option for Man City. I think is a good enough player that Guardiola could evolve into that right wing position if he wanted him to. But I just thought it was interesting. Because playing on the right wing, he played 23 minutes. He had an 87% pass accuracy, lost possession 3 times, committed 1 foul. And it wasn't the best performance from him when he came on, but also I have to say they were winning at that point. West Ham were on the more attack, and Man City were just countering at that point or keeping hold of the play if they wanted to. But it is surprising, and I think long term there are going to be short term, there are going to be question marks over him because it was a surprise when Man City came in for him initially anyway. But then I don't know where he's going to get too much of his game time, that City side.
Yeah, I think he's, for how I've seen him, he's probably maybe I put him more in that Gundogan role that we haven't seen anyone particularly fill just yet. I think he is someone who is really, he's going to be good at those sort of late runs into the box, but he's also a really good carrier in himself as well. He's not as much of like a natural, technically gifted player like your Bernardo Silvas or your Kovacic who really hold on to the ball, but someone who's really direct and will actually take it past people as opposed to sort of spinning around in tight spaces. And Pep made some really interesting comments saying he plays really well in the middle, out wide, and I'm not sure if it was a little sort of joke to the media or if he was being serious, saying that he could eventually become a good fullback. And I'm not sure if that's sort of taken the mick out of everyone's obsession with Pep's fullbacks inverting, or if he actually meant it. So I think I can take that with like a pinch of salt.
Well, he could be Zinchenko 2.0.
He could, and he's obviously very technically good. He's very technically good on the ball, and if he is inverting, it's not really much different to playing in the central midfield role that we saw him play at Sporting. Yeah, interesting signing. We didn't see the best of him at Wolves. We saw glimpses, but to be honest, I think if Pep had signed him for 50, 60 million, we saw how good he was at Sporting, then he is going to come good as a Man City player, as they all seem to do.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, he's just another player and a body in there that's going to do amazingly. A bit like Bernardo Silva, who I thought did have a good game. Obviously, he got the goal to make it 2-1, and then he got the assist for Haaland to make it 3-1. I do question if Sigurd defending for that second goal, because the fact that, Alvarez just chipped the ball and he completely mistimed his header and he jumped up and the ball just went over him on his way down. And then Bernardo Silva, who's not the tallest, the ball wasn't being chipped to Haaland, it was being chipped to Bernardo Silva, like 5'6", 5'7", and then he could just toe poke it past Areola, and I did question his defending there. I thought West Ham didn't help themselves, but they go on to the Europa Conference League, and they'll be fine. They'll be mid-table, maybe competing for near the top 10.
Yeah.
But they've done really well so far.
Yeah,
West Ham.
They've started the season a lot better than I thought they would. I thought they'd have obviously a better season in the Prem than they did last year, but they've really pushed on. James Ward-Prowse has settled in so easily. He's looked really good. They have, I wouldn't say this game particularly, but they've looked pretty solid defensively. Just been some decent performances, and I feel like we say this every week when we talk about City. Like, it was a good performance, but it was against City.
Yeah,
so
he was just too good to be stopped.
Pretty much.
Yeah. Should we move on then?
Yeah.
So next up is Aston Villa 3, Crystal Palace 1, and two sides who had a bit of a okay start to the league. Neither side were really excelling and doing too much, but both sides look promising and have potential. But it's Aston Villa who came out on top.
Yeah, it's two sides I've actually really enjoyed watching this season, I would say. I think they've got some really interesting players, some players playing in interesting positions as well, especially with sort of Crystal Palace. They've had that same lineup with Ayew on the right and Edouard up front, who have both, I think, have played really, really well this season. Edouard got the goal in this game for Palace, and then the same for Aston Villa. They've got some really good, exciting attacking players. Your Leon Bailey's, Ollie Watkins and Diaby, and they've all been really good to watch. They have had a few off games this season. Obviously, Villa getting battered 5-1 by Newcastle. Yeah, it was a good performance from Palace, I think, up to about the hour mark, I would say, when it seemed things sort of really fell apart for them. They had a good chance to really go ahead and win that game, but Aston Villa turned it around as soon as they went 1-0 down.
Yeah, I think it was... the fact that Crystal Palace were winning 1-0 up until the 87th minute when Aston Villa scored their first, and then they ended up losing the game 3-1, I think was slightly harsh, but it was a mixture of slightly harsh plus also they just lost their heads / concentration towards the end, Crystal Palace, and it was one where, I just thought Villa were knocking on the door and eventually they were going to knock it down. And they did, with Duran, who scored the first goal, which was a lovely control on his chest, and the finish past Sam Johnson, who was, a massive brick wall in the goal for the whole of the game up until that moment, because there's one where he made a save from Watkins, who tried to curl it into the top corner, but he got his fingers to it and ended up putting it onto the post, and then fine enough, off the post, hit him on the back of the head, and then went out for a corner, which was really lucky because it could have gone to the back of the net and been an own goal. But, Crystal Palace have really impressed me, especially with Odsonne Edouard scoring some goals, finally looking like he's hitting that potentially showed at Celtic, because this was a player who people thought when he signed from Celtic he could be a 15-20 goal a season striker. And finally he's scoring some goals. We'll see how consistent he can be across the whole season. But in this purple patch so far, 5 games in, he's really done well.
Yeah, I've brought him in my fantasy team.
Have
When
you?
was it? It was the week that he scored the brace was the first time I had him in. He was 5.5 million, which we know, I think there's been question marks on him whether he's been like a starter, because obviously there's been Mateta, sometimes Zaha's been playing as a centre forward, but now he's really locked down that strike position. I thought, I'm taking out João Pedro, who's a bit of a... So I'll put Edouard in. He got the brace, got another goal this weekend, and I think he's in the like, what do they call it, the dream team of the season so far. He's one of the top scoring strikers, obviously behind Mr. Haaland, but yeah, he's been playing really well, scoring good goals. And you were touching on it last week, saying how many shots Palace are sort of taking this season. They only got 6 away this game, which is maybe where they were sort of restricted, and they could only get the 1 goal.
Yeah, well, I think it'd be helpful for the fact that when Michael Elise is back, I mean, they'll have a bit more creativity, and maybe they'll have more shot-creating actions as a result of that. But, you know, I think, like we said, I think Aston Villa just had too much firepower. I mean, you saw the highlights? Did you see the penalty decision? Did you think it was a pen?
You're going to have to remind me what it was.
Was
it a foul?
So there's a foul on Watkins as he was going through.
Oh, definitely, that was
yeah.
I know it seemed like was that the one where he slid and got the ball afterwards.
Yeah,
that was 100%.
Yeah, I agree. I just want other really interesting talk about. Yeah, I was hoping maybe not sure, but no. Yeah, I thought it was a pen. I think it was similar vibes to the Van Dijk against Newcastle, where he got the man first and then the ball. Yeah, but I was like, that's a pen.
I feel like that's what it always seems like when you're watching it live or in the stadium and you first see it and you think, oh, he's got the ball, and then you're watching the replay and you instantly are like, okay, no, he got the man.
Yeah, you're halfway there to tweeting and then you're like, what a joke the referees are, and then you're like, oh, never mind, I'll delete that. Or save it as a draft for the next week. But yeah, what a lovely finish. And then obviously Leon Bailey getting the third one to make it 3-1 after a lovely counter attack. Musa Diaby down the left, Leon Bailey at the back post, and then lovely 3-1 finish. And then I think, like we said, Crystal Palace can feel a little bit hard done by, because for 87 minutes they defended really well.
Yeah, but 3 points for Villa.
3 points for Villa, who go into the Conference League next. And I feel like there's a lot of teams in Europe. There's 8 English teams in Europe across all 3 European competitions.
Yeah, it's crazy.
So it's going to be really interesting, because I think now the season starts. So we're going to be really seeing the depth, the injuries come into play now, and how well the managers can set up their teams playing every 3 days. So it's going to be really sort out who's going to be at the top. Like, can Brighton sustain? Can Villa, improve or stay where they are? How are the traditional top 6? Not Chelsea, going to cope with it, and just see how they're going to do. Because I think come the next international, we'll see like the table really try and sort out into where teams may lay up.
I think that's what we were all saying at the start of the season, is these teams like Brighton, Villa, West Ham, who obviously they did drop last season because of European football, that they may have that drop, and those teams without it can jump up. We obviously haven't seen that from Chelsea yet, which we'll obviously touch on towards the end of the podcast with their game against Bournemouth. But I think a lot of these teams still have a lot of depth as well. I think Brighton and Villa do both have really good depth, and I'm not sure if it will have much of an impact straight away. I think maybe if they start getting to those late stages of the competitions, which they could, the way both of them are playing and the way they can play on their day, and potentially a case of resting players in the league and then going for the European games, maybe where I could see them dropping some few points. But I think in terms of squad management, both teams have really good experienced managers with that, and the squads to do so far.
Yeah, I think so. I think Brighton only have, I think, Encisa, who's maybe a long-term doubt, and obviously Aston Villa have Tyron Mings, who sustained that injury against Newcastle, and Emi Buendia, who kind of, I think, did his ACL before the season just probably started. So, we'll see how the injuries front goes on. It could be interesting just around the Christmas period when you're out for 4 weeks but you're missing 8 games potentially.
Yeah.
That could be huge.
We have got some really exciting news to bring you guys this week. It's no longer going to be just me and Mev on the podcast. We're actually bringing in a third member of the Football Fellowship. His name is Mr. Quiz.
Yes.
Back at the halftime game of Football Only Connect after a week's break, which was very sad. I missed it.
It was very sad. My podcast on my own felt a bit weird without a quiz in it. I felt like it wasn't complete, but it's nice to have the quiz back. And I'm gonna catch up this time.
Yeah, we've had a week's break, week's revision.
Yeah, I much needed for me, especially considering what we should be on right now.
Yeah, it's 11 points to me, 10 points to Mev, so it's a narrow 1-point lead. But we were saying the average should be about 3.
Yeah.
After 6 episodes, we should be on 18 as a par. So we are like double, triple bogey range, I would say.
So we really need to rebrand our podcast as like the two who don't know anything about football.
Just two random people forced to talk about football.
Yes, but it's fine because I'm going to get it in one this time.
You reckon?
You want to
go first?
Yeah, I'll guess first.
Okay, sure.
Yeah.
So I'll give you my players. So
okay,
just as a really quick reminder of the rules, 5 players, 1 club. The less players you need to get the club, the more points you get. 5 points if you get it on the first player, 1 point if you get it on the last player.
I'm ready.
So we've got our club. And the first player who played for that club is Bobby Zamora.
Right, Bobby Zamora, England international striker, played for QPR, Fulham, and those are the teams I can remember. So, I am going to go for a Queen's Park Rangers.
It's not Queen's Park Rangers. It's not Queen's Park Rangers. The second player for 4 points is Paul Konchesky.
Former Liverpool left back who did play for West Ham and Fulham, I'm sure. So I'm going to say Fulham.
It's not Fulham. Unfortunately.
I got West Ham in my head, though.
Third player for the par of 3 points, Darren Bent.
Who was the first player?
Bobby Zamora, Paul
Konchesky,
and Darren Bent.
So obviously Darren... Oh, hang on. So we said we couldn't say teams that we've already said, because I said Sunderland already. So Darren Bent was at Sunderland, but I think... I'm going to say West Ham.
It's not West Ham,
It's not West Ham,
It's not West Ham. I think you're going to get it on this one. I'm confident in you.
Okay, please. Go on.
Fourth player for 2 points, Jermaine Genus.
Huh? Well, okay, so he was at Spurs. Paul Konchesky at Spurs was Darren Bent was, unless it's Newcastle. Oh, it's probably Newcastle. No, have I said Newcastle? Have you said Newcastle before? I've said Sunderland, and I think you were guessing along Newcastle lines, but now it's at Spurs. I'm pretty sure Paul Konchesky didn't play for. I'm going to say Spurs.
It is Spurs. So 2 points. Well done, mate. Well done. You almost talked yourself out of it. You had Spurs straight away.
I know. Yeah. Well, I associate Jermaine Genus mainly with Spurs.
Yeah. Probably because of his bias on Match of the Day. A lot of the time, I would say.
Just an awful pundit, isn't he? It's alright, I don't mind saying. He's not going to be watching this.
He's giving you the 2 points.
He's giving me the 2 points, yeah. That's alright. Yeah, I'm alright with that. I feel like I had the teams there or thereabouts pretty early on. I thought that was alright.
Yeah. Solid.
2 points average.
So you've got a point lead now. It is 12 to 11.
12 to 11. Yes, let's see how you do. I think you'll probably get this in 4.
You're just putting the pressure on straight away.
No, well, I need to. It's a dark art. They call me Jose Mourinho.
Jose Mourinho of Only Connect.
Only Connect. Right, you ready?
Yep.
Okay. So your first player for 5 points is Roque Santa Cruz.
Okay. I know he played for Blackburn, and I think that might be about it, to be honest. He played for a Spanish side, I think. But I don't know who. Yeah, he must play for like a Spanish side, like a Sevilla, Villarreal, Valencia, someone like that, but I don't know it, so I'm just going to have to go for Blackburn.
It's incorrect.
Yeah, I didn't think it would be right.
It's all right. Your second player for 4 points is Martin Demichelis.
Okay, I'm pretty sure this is going to be... Oh, could it be Bayern Munich, actually? It's Bayern Munich. Demichelis did play for a Spanish side. I think he played for Getafe. And then obviously he played for Man City. But so did Santa Cruz play for Man City? Oh, this could be like... Let's have a think. Demichelis definitely played for Bayern. I don't know the Spanish side, but I think it's like Getafe or Mallorca or someone like that. And he did definitely obviously play for City. But I feel like that's quite obvious. So I'm going to go for Bayern Munich.
It's incorrect. But he did play for Bayern Munich, and I was actually... when I was researching players for this club, and I realised that Martin Demichelis played for Bayern Munich, I was like, hang on, when did that happen?
Yeah, I feel like I'd only know that because I didn't know it before I saw it.
Yeah. So your third player for 3 points is Willy Caballero.
Okay, I'm pretty sure he also played for Getafe and Man City. Oh, is it Mallorca? Or... Who else has Caballero played for? No one else that I know, actually. Surely it can't. City's way too obvious. It's like the mind games he's playing. He's made it too obvious to start with. I'm going to go Getafe.
It's incorrect.
Oh, no.
Your fourth player for 2 points is Isco.
Oh, it is that Spanish side then. It's not Getafe. Is it Mallorca? Who is... There's Mallorca. It's not like Cadiz or however you say it, Cadiz. It's not them. It's one of those clubs around... Girona's Italian. I've got that in my head. I need to get rid of that. It must be Mallorca. Mallorca.
It's incorrect.
No way. What is it?
And your last player for 1 point, the equal, is Joaquin. Also fully known as Joaquin Sanchez Rodriguez.
He's played for Betis for ages. Is that his team, I think? Is it Betis? Or is it Eibar or something? I don't know. I could have sworn it was bloody...
Would you like a clue?
No. No clues.
Because there's one clue I could give you, and then it'll really throw you off, and I think it'll be fun.
No. I mean, if you think it's going to throw me off, you can go for it, but it might help.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to give you the clue, because I want to see how your brain handles this. It's not a team you've mentioned yet.
Okay.
At all.
Who is Isco played for? Caballero. What was this? What was the last one? Is Isco, Caballero,
Demichelis, Santa Cruz, Demichelis, Caballero, Isco, and now Joaquin.
What team does Joaquin play? Was it Celta Vigo or Betis? Or it's one of those sort of teams. I don't think it's either Betis or Celta Vigo, I think. I don't know though. So no.
How long have we been playing?
Where has Isco played? He was at like Mallorca before Madrid. Did he go? Has he gone somewhere now? Oh, maybe he did just... No, he was going to sign for Union Berlin. He didn't, and then he signed for someone else. Let's go Betis.
It's incorrect.
What the fuck? What is it?
It's not Mallorca. It's Malaga.
Oh, mate. Oh, that's so annoying.
It's Malaga. Do you know now?
Yeah, because it was... It was the team that Pellegrini, I think, managed before he came to City.
It is.
That's why Demichelis and Caballero went there. And then obviously Isco was there before Madrid.
He was there before Madrid.
Was it Malaga?
Malaga. Yeah.
I should have got... I was so set on Mallorca. I should have got that, really.
Yeah. Well, I was like, are you just getting the confused and the wrong Spanish team beginning with M?
Yeah.
Because I was thinking, I was like, if I just say it's not a team you mentioned, will you go for something else? And like, Malaga. And I was like, if you get Malaga in your head, you'd be like, it's Malaga.
Yeah. I just didn't know the name of the team, clearly.
That's all right. Yeah, Santa Cruz was there after City. Demichelis was there at the end of his career. Caballero was there, made 117 appearances before joining City. Isco was there before joining Madrid. And Joaquin was there earlier in his career from 2011 to 2013.
Damn.
Yeah.
Well, there we go. It's nil point.
Nil point. I thought that was like...
That was a tough one.
Yeah, I thought it might have been. But I also thought... I saw a YouTube video about Malaga, how they've fallen because they're like in the second division of the Spanish
okay,
league,
yeah.
and they're not doing well, not looking like they're getting promoted.
Mm.
I'm just like how far they've fallen from the team they did have. The one
Yeah.
that got to the Champions League semi-final,
Yeah,
and I was like, I wonder how far away from football security they've gone. So let's just Tobes with it.
Too far.
Too
Clearly.
far,
Too
clearly. But we'll take it. Come on.
Next week I'm doing bloody, I don't know, some random ass South American team.
Yeah.
I'm bringing back Colo Colo. I'm bringing them back.
Do you know any players who play for them?
Nope. But I saw someone wearing a Colo Colo shirt the other day, and I can't remember who it was. It was a musician, like an artist in a concert wearing it, and I was like, it was Post Malone. It was Post Malone. I'm pretty sure he was wearing a Colo Colo shirt. I was like, that's sick.
Well, props to him for that obscure football knowledge.
Yeah, they'll be playing at 5 points. Post Malone.
Oh god.
Cool.
Yeah.
Right.
That's it. Back to the episode. Let's move on to our final 3-1 result of the game week, because there have been a few, which is Wolverhampton Wanderers 1, Liverpool 3. And the Reds did look poor, didn't they?
Were you worried for this for the first half when Wolves went 1-0 up?
I was worried because on last week's podcast, when I did solo, I said Wolves have no chance of winning this game. And I said Liverpool would either narrowly win or blow Wolves away. And they ended up narrowly winning. And I think 3-1 was a bit harsh on Wolves, because I think they did play well. And Liverpool, it was very much a smash and grab, because I thought Wolves played really well in that first half. Well, a mixture of Wolves playing really well and Liverpool playing really badly. I thought that Pedro Neto looked really good down the left-hand side. The fact that Joe Gomez was playing right back, I don't have too many concerns, because I think defensively solid. But then watching the game, Neto had him on toast. Yeah. Him on at right back, Joel Matip at right centre back. They were a shambles. I mean, they both got showed up by Jarrell Kwanzaa, the 20-year-old. So, you know, I think it's one fair play to Wolves. They definitely deserved their opening goal. Neto skipping past Gomez and Matip, putting the ball at the back post, and there was Hwang who just side-footed it in the back of the net and to make it 1-0. And it's exactly what they deserved. I thought it was interesting that Mateus Cunha was playing up front. I said I would have gone with Fabio Silva, because I think eventually he is going to score goals. He's got an XG of 1 so far this season, so he's due a goal. But Cunha could have actually made it 2-0.
Probably should have made it 2-0.
Probably should have. Completely timed his jump. Ended up chesting it in the end.
I don't know. He did like it was like a Ronaldo-esque jump, like really trying to jump and then like hover.
Yeah.
And then head it, but he got it all wrong in the end, really.
Yeah.
I would have thought he would have put it away, a player of his quality, but yeah, it's just unlucky. And they probably, I don't know, would you say they probably would have deserved to go 2-0 up the way they were playing?
Yeah, absolutely. Based on that first half, Liverpool were awful, Wolves were really good, and I think 2-0 up for Wolves at halftime was exactly what they deserved. And I just don't think that, you know, Liverpool played well at all. I saw Match of the Day do the analysis, and they said they weren't happy with the fact that the front three of Salah, Gakpo and Jota were all dropping deep to look for the ball, and it was only in the second half when Luis Diaz and Nunes came on that they were actually trying to run in behind. And it's actually quite interesting, because it was Nunes, Diaz and Robertson were the three players who were running in behind the Wolves' defence the most, which kind of goes to show that, you know, with this inverted formation, with Trent Alexander-Arnold playing in the inverted right back, Robertson tugging into the back three, it really hinders how good a player Robertson is going forward. That's something we haven't seen up until, obviously, when he got his goal. But I think it's one where Liverpool got away with it.
Yeah, I think a lot of that maybe was, I think Salah in the second half just really stepped up. He just took the game by the scruff of the neck, and he basically had 3 assists.
Yeah.
The third goal obviously went down as an own goal because the shot was off target. But he's playing quite differently to what we've seen so far this season. He's not getting as many goal-scoring chances himself, but I'm pretty sure he's the top assister in the league now.
Yeah.
I don't know, is he playing further out wide, or is he maybe dropping deeper? Is there any sort of tactical change you've noticed that's getting him more assists than goals so far?
I mean, the obvious one is when Trent comes inverted into the midfield, there's obviously no one out on that right side. And sometimes it's Szoboszlai who interchanges with Salah, obviously, because he has played out on the wing before when at RB Leipzig. But it tends to be Salah drifts in wider, which allows more space for the middle of the park. So if someone like Nunes was playing, then Trent has the ability to find Nunes, and Nunes can run on behind, and then Salah can also try and find Nunes or Gakpo or Jota, whoever it is. So it is interesting. But I also just think because of the fact that Salah is such a well-known attacking threat and he's established as being one of the best attackers in the league and the world for so many years now, that I think teams are just marking him out the game. So it's almost a tactic of Salah's just like, fine, whatever. I would like to score goals, but if I don't, I'll just assist my teammates.
Yeah.
So then the other four lads, whoever it is, whether it's Nunes, Gakpo, Jota, or Diaz, are in those attacking positions because people are the defense is so focused on Salah, and then forget about the rest of the team. And I think it's something where his role is evolving, especially as he's getting older. Maybe he's not going to be scoring as many goals, maybe not clinical as he used to be, but that's only 1 or 2%. And the fact is that he's still a world class player and he's still assisting his teammates. So I think it's something that he's the only forward that's got a return in every single week so far. Even Haaland hasn't done that. So I think it's one where, as a Liverpool, I'm just really glad to have him in our team and starting week in, week out. It'll be interesting to see if he starts in Europa League or not, considering, are you going to keep him fresh for the league, or are you not? But I've got to give credit to Jurgen Klopp this game because I thought his substitutions were really, really good. Because at half-time, McAllister, after being away on international duty, he looked knackered. He got an early yellow card. He needed to come off. And we even changed the formation to play a 4-4-2 almost, with Curtis Jones and Dominic Szoboszlai in the middle. And I think that really worked out. And I think, Klopp has to take a lot of credit for it as well.
Nice. Good stuff for Liverpool.
Yeah. Wolves, do you think they're in trouble of going down?
We say a lot that they're playing well but not getting the results, and that can really be a problem when teams are in that conversation for potential relegation. They do have to start picking up points. It's actually similar to Everton, who we'll be talking about next, where they're getting good XG, but they're just, I think with Wolves, they're probably conceding too many goals, whereas Everton aren't scoring enough goals. So I don't know. It's one of those things where we kind of have to wait for them to start getting the points, but all this time that they're playing well, not getting the points, it just means they are going to have to pick up more at the end of the season. They're not quite taking advantage of how well they're playing, and eventually it could get to a point where they're not picking up these points. Do the players keep believing in the system? Do they change things, or do they keep staying as they are, playing well, and then just hope that the results come? Because they've surprised me how well they have played this season. I thought they would be really down there, especially with the problems at the club and replacing the manager. But I think they've got to keep as they are, maybe for 3 or 4 games. If things still aren't going their way, something might have to change, but I'm not sure what that is quite yet.
Yeah, I think they'll be fine for now. I think Gary Neal's come in, has really revitalised that squad. I think there was a very big dark cloud over the club when Lopetegui was there. He wasn't reportedly not very happy. And I think Gary Neal has really been like, he's happy to be there, he wants to be there, and really that positive is exuded into the playing squad and the fans. So I think, like I said, they're playing well. I think Pedro Neto, Hwang, Fabio Silva, Klasic, Mateus Cunha, they need to keep their forwards fit. And I think they will be fine. I think between them, they will score enough goals. I'm not sure if one of them will have an outstanding goal scoring season, but I think between them, together, they'll maybe keep them up, even though at the beginning of the season that they were guaranteed to go down. But a team who look like they may be going down is am I there yet? No, I'm not there yet. I am on the wrong game. Ignore me.
Everton 0, Arsenal 1.
Is it Everton next?
That's what I've got.
It is, yes.
Yep.
Everton 0, Arsenal 1. Your team, you take it away. I don't know what I'm on about.
Yeah, it was again not a particularly convincing win from Arsenal. We had obviously our goal ruled out in the first half for offside. We had a good few chances, but Everton defended pretty well on the whole front of the game. They didn't have much of the ball. I don't think they particularly wanted much of the ball, and really restricted us to only a few chances in the game with an XG of 1 by the end. Everton didn't particularly have too many chances themselves, which is actually, they normally do have quite a lot of chances. I would say they normally are getting a decent XG and are actually playing quite well, but this was a bit of a stale game, I would probably say is the best way to describe it.
Yeah, it was a very boring game to be watching on a Sunday, I'll be completely honest. But yeah. I thought it was a fantastic result for Arsenal, especially given the recent record at Goodison Park. It's been really poor in recent years, and I just thought to get a win, 1-0 away from home, you take that and you move on.
Yeah.
And I think it's one that in the dressing room, Arteta would have been saying to his players, do you know what? I mean, a win's a win, that's all that matters, and you take it and you go home happy. And the players will go, yeah, do you know what? We'll take it and we'll move on to the Champions League and focus on other things. Because I think people say it and it's a cliche, but winning 1-0, and especially away from home, is a mark of a team who are title challengers. And I think Arsenal are the most well balanced team to be challenging City. So the fact that they won 1-0 away from home, I think it's perfectly fine. You move on and you go on to the next game. I do think the issue to Martinelli, who obviously came off injured, may be a slight worry. I mean, Trossard came in, got the goal, did fantastically well. But if Martinelli's out for a few weeks, it really does hamper your options. Obviously, you've got Reece Nelson, you can also play on the left. You've got Vieira, who could push out. Havertz, who you could push out. I mean, you could play one of Jesus, maybe out to the left. You want to play Jesus and Nketiah. So you've got options. I think you'll be fine on the injury front. Are you worried? Because I know he hasn't had a great start of the season, Martinelli.
He hasn't. I don't know. I think watching the Arsenal games, I would actually say he's been our most direct player. I think we've seen a lot of him, as we have in the last few seasons, of him picking up the ball and really driving at people. And I think we haven't had much of that this season. We've been a lot more patient in our build-up, a lot more... there's been a lot less passes through the middle. I've seen a lot of pass maps this season of Arsenal, and we haven't had that cutting edge through the middle because I think... Jesus hasn't been playing. We haven't got that much of an outlet. A lot of it's been going wide to then try and get it into Nketiah. And I think Martinelli has actually quite thrived in that role of being really direct on the wing. He's getting the ball a bit more, really driving at fullbacks, and I think we will miss that. Trossard's a very different player. He likes to not pick up that ball as wide and come in, but rather come in and then pick up the ball. And he had a good game against Everton. It was nice to see. He hasn't had too many minutes this season. But he has been, over the last season, a really good player to come on with sort of 30, 40 minutes left and really make an impact. And this week he had about 70 and got the winning goal. I think against Spurs, I'm not sure what the sort of lineup is going to be. I think Nketiah didn't have a great game against Everton. He didn't really do much. I think he only had about 10 or 11 touches. It was very, very low. Didn't provide much. Especially against Everton's low block is where he really struggles, I think, actually. He's a lot better with spacing behind. And I think we really did miss Jesus in this game. I think we need him when we're playing against really defensive teams to drop in and pick up that ball. And I think we would have made a lot more chances with him in the team.
But he has been coming back from an injury, so it's good that the fact that he's getting the minutes.
He has. But I think I would have liked to see him start this game against Everton. Fabio Vieira had a really good game. I thought it was good to see him start. He's had a lot of stick about since coming to the club, maybe not performing as well as we would have thought, but I think this season he's looked completely different. He's looked a lot more confident, which is a big thing as well. And even Havertz, when he came on, I was pretty impressed. I think he was maybe better than he was in the game before. Against Spurs, I'm not sure. I'm not sure what the ideal lineup would be. I think it is going to be Trossard on the left, if Martinelli will be out. And I'm not sure whether Jesus or Nketiah is it a home game for Arsenal? I'm not actually sure, to be honest.
No, I don't know. I think you are at home.
I think if it's a home game, I want to see Jesus. But if it's away, I think there's going to be quite a lot of space in behind Tottenham that I think Nketiah can really punish them on, and we can probably break. Because I think at home Spurs are going to want to keep the ball as they have this season. And I think if we can play out, release Nketiah, he can run on, hold it up for Trossard and Saka. And it is home, is it?
It is at home.
Yeah. So but then if it's at home, I think Spurs are going to be a little more defensive. They are going to sit back, and I think it could be a better game for Jesus. I just think he offers a lot more than Nketiah does. But yeah, it was a good win. Like you said, a good 1-0 win away from home. And then we've got PSV in midweek as well, which will be interesting to see. Maybe we'll see Smith Rowe come in that game, Nelson as well. Probably see a completely different back line. But yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting. I'm not super confident against Spurs, I can't lie.
Well, I'll say that I thought Vieira did well. I think it was the right decision to take Havertz out of the firing line, and for someone who's taken a lot of stick, I think slightly too much as well, just because of the fact that for his performance he hasn't deserved the amount of criticism that he's got.
No.
But I think that it was the right thing, taking out the firing and bringing Vieira, who in I think 43 minutes of football so far has got 2 assists and looked really well. And I think he's backed up his performances. So it depends what happened, like I said, in midweek against PSV, to who starts in the North London derby. I do think that Jesus is being primed to play 70 to 80 minutes against Spurs, and then hopefully you have a lead, and then when you're defending and you can counter attack with Nketiah, I think that's maybe what you're going to go for.
Yeah.
I think Trossard is going to be starting on the left hand side because I think Martinelli felt something in his hamstring, which even if it is the tiniest thing, he wouldn't have come off if it was cramp. So it's got to be enough that I think it will keep him out for at least 3 to 4 games. I'm guessing this is just a guessing and a hypothetical. But I think your backline, your goalkeeper, which we'll come on to, and your back four picked itself, I think. But Arteta's comments after the game were interesting, and he did start David Raya.
Yeah.
So David Raya or Aaron Ramsdale?
I honestly couldn't pick. I think Raya had a good game. He looked comfortable, especially for a first start away at a hostile ground like Goodison, where we haven't played very well in the last few seasons. He seemed comfortable. Just a decent performance, but it's so difficult when you've got two. He's trying to do this two-keeper system. I don't think you can choose one or the other. I think it probably is going to be something where it depends on the opponents, depends how they are in training. I don't think we are going to be able to predict who's playing in goal each week. There's potential it could be trying to ease Raya in to be the starter, but I think for the next sort of 10-15 games, it could be either of them. And to be honest, I'm happy with that. They're both great keepers. Both have similar qualities. Raya potentially better at those long balls compared to Ramsdale, and maybe a bit more assured. But Ramsdale probably has those better like shot stopping moments, those saves that get us a point or keep us the 3 points. And yeah, I think it depends on the opponent, but they're both brilliant keepers, really.
That's a bit too on the fence for me. So, David Raya, I've got some stats for you from his game. He made 30 of his 32 passes completed successfully, which is 94%. The only two he didn't was 2 of his long balls, which he got 7 out of 9 passes passed successfully. 100% of his short and medium passes were successful. And runs out of the box, 1 out of 1. High claims, 2 out of 2. And he made 1 successful clearance. And I think it was the right game to bring him into because of the fact that I think Everton had the threat with a forward, with Beto starting up front, and with the centre-backs of Tarkowski and Branthwaite. They were tall, they were there, physical if need be, Decore as well, Onana as well, who had a great game against Arsenal at the back end of last season. So I think it was the right game to bring him because I think it was the perfect game for him. It'd be interesting to see going forward if Arteta decides that it's game specific or if it's long term, if it's one of them is going to be my goalkeeper and it's only going to be one, and this is a period of time where he's going to be trying both. I don't think you buy David Raya unless you want him to be your number one. I know people have been comparing it to Jason Steele and Bart Verbruggen at Brighton, but I think both those players are at two different ends of their career. Verbruggen is at the beginning of his career and he's got the potential and it looks like he's going to eventually be taking up the mantle as number one goalkeeper. Whereas Jason Steele is doing a fantastic job at the moment, but is probably going to be on his way out at some point. Whereas David Raya and Aaron Ramsdale are both, I would say, Ramsdale is entering his peak and Raya is in this peak. So I think that eventually Raya is going to be the number one goalkeeper. It'll be interesting to see that, especially the next 2 games for Arsenal. Like I said, Champions League, who starts? Is he going to rotate again? And the North London derby, that's arguably Arsenal's biggest game of the season so far. I mean, obviously Man United was a big game, but against your rivals, it's a big game. So I think by the next time we record this podcast, we're going to find out a lot.
We might know. I think, yeah, you could be right. It'll either be... I think if Raya does start that Spurs game, he could be the one coming in. But I wouldn't be surprised with Arteta if he's trying to do like a 2-keeper system where he is changing it depending on the opponent. I feel like that's such a Arteta thing to try and really think ahead of the curve and be like, right, this is something. There's games where Ramsdale does struggle, so we'll bring in Raya. But then there's games where Ramsdale would be better than Raya, so start him. I couldn't pick it. I do really like David Raya, and I wouldn't be upset if he did become our starting keeper because he's so good and his stats last season were better than Ramsdale's. So maybe if I did have to pick one without any sort of thoughts of emotion, it probably would be David Raya on paper. but I feel like it is still quite harsh for Aaron Ramsdale.
Do you think if this was Pep Guardiola trying to do this with Edison and another great, fantastic goalkeeper like say it's Ortega who's on the bench now, and he was trying to rotate them, and in some games where Man City were coming under pressure, they might go Ortega because they're a better shot stopper, but teams which aren't going to press and drop deep, Edison's a better on this with the ball at his feet. Do you think if there's Pep Guardiola, someone who has years of experience, won all the trophies there is, that they'd be like, oh my god, this revolutionary, and everyone would be following? Mm. Or do you think just because it's Arteta and Arsenal that people are criticising a bit more?
It's difficult because I know it's good to change the players based on who you're coming up against, and it can give you an advantage in some cases. But then you've got the other hand where even in Guardiola's system where he does change players, maybe not so much this season, but in the last few seasons quite regularly, he still has starters that start every week. Haaland, Rodri, Ruben Dias, they are the spine of that team and will start every single week almost. Is the goalkeeper one of those? In Edison, obviously for Man City, is going to be. But if it could give you a tactical advantage, and we'll see as the season goes on whether it works, it could be something that other teams start picking up. I don't know. But
maybe it's the solution for Arsenal not having to spend £100 million on a goalkeeper. You just have two £50 million goalkeepers, and you play to their strengths.
Yeah, possibly. Well, yeah, we'll see against Spurs. I really hope. I think it's going to be a really exciting game. I think it's going to be end to end. I think it's going to be a really good North London derby.
It's going to be carnage.
I feel like it's the first time maybe in a couple of seasons where both teams have been playing well. I think last season it was just Arsenal, and maybe the seasons before that it was Spurs were better than Arsenal. Whereas this feels like the first time both teams playing well. We could see any number of different players playing for Arsenal. Can Spurs keep it up? Will they be staying aggressive? Will they sit back a bit more? I'm really, really excited for this one. I can't wait to watch it.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I think it's been an absolute cracker. And make sure you're here next week to join us because we're going to be covering it. And I'm fairly confident it'll probably be the first game we're going to talk about.
I think when Arsenal wins 6-1, it will probably be the first game.
6-1.
I think maybe if it's 4-1, we could push it down to second. Because...
I don't know. I mean...
No, I don't. We're not going to win 6. I think it's...
Imagine if you do win 6-1. You will never shut up about it. And rightfully so, I think, as well.
I think if I had to predict it, I would say 2-1 to Arsenal. I feel like it's
2-1 to Arsenal.
I think we will win. I hope we will win.
Just because you're at home, I think you will win. But I think it's only just... I'm going to go for an absolute cracker, 3-2. Oh, nice. I have no idea who's going to score. I have no idea what's going to happen. But I just think that when it's a North London derby, there's always more goals. It's less cagey. When it's Liverpool, Everton, Liverpool, Man United, or Chelsea, I just feel like Arsenal, Tottenham, there's always goals. There's always guaranteed goals. Yeah. And I just think it's just going to be two teams going at it. And I can't wait to see it.
Yeah, let's hope so.
Yeah, but moving on then to Newcastle 1, Brentford 0, and a Newcastle side who have now stopped the rod of 3 consecutive defeats. They finally won a game now, and if you look back to the beginning of the season when they beat Aston Villa 5-1, who would have thought it would take Gameweek 5 for them to get their next win?
Yeah, and it was they changed the team. There was no Isak. He was on the bench. He didn't even come on. In the end, it was Wilson, and he was the man who got the goal for them.
Yeah, I think it was a much needed change to the team in general. I think when you go 3 defeats in a row, you just need to change something. I mean, it massively helped the fact that they had Sven Botman back from his injury, allowed them to have the partnership of Shah and Botman and move Byrne back to left back, which had been their centre back 5 for a while now, and it seemed like that's a side that defensively that's the most comfortable. It was interesting, like you mentioned, changes. Anthony Gordon moved out to the right hand side. Harvey Barnes came in on the left. Even in midfield, they changed. Bruno Guimaraes was still there, but they had Longstaff and Elliot Anderson come in. And apparently, a lot of Newcastle fans have been calling for Elliot Anderson for a while, just to get a few more minutes than he has. And, he ended up getting a start, played really well. I think it's one where, with Champions League fixtures coming for Newcastle as well, it's important they rotate. I expect the team will revert back to a similar team when they play AC Milan. Which Newcastle vs AC Milan, what a game that is! But
their group is crazy.
Their group is crazy. The group of death with PSG, Dortmund, and AC Milan. But I think they're going to be rotating as well, and it's good to see that they have a bit of squad depth that they can use in the forward lines and midfield. Defensively, I'm not too sure, but yeah, I think it's back to winning ways. I think it was a very cagey game, end to end, in some regards. But I just think I mean, both teams, Newcastle had 9 shots, Brentford had 11 actually. Only 2 on target for both teams. And I think it was the fact that Brentford showed a lot of respect to Newcastle, and the fact that they went 3 or 5 at the back, depending on where the full wing backs were. They've played a 4-3-3 so far this season with Wisa and Bemo and Kevin Schade as the front three. I think the fact that, going 5-3-2 showed a lot of respect, but ultimately it wasn't good enough. They weren't clinical up top.
Yeah, it was not the best performance from Brentford. I think Newcastle away is always a tough fixture. Maybe that changing to that 3/5 back helped them defensively. The Newcastle had a few chances, but like you said, there was only 2 on target in the end, and maybe it restricted Brentford going forward a little bit. Both teams looked fairly decent at the back line. It was just quite a cagey game and not many chances for either, really. I can't imagine Brentford will be staying with that system. I think in the big games, possibly in the tougher fixtures, keep it solid at the back. But I think if they do stay with that against the weaker teams, they'll struggle to make chances as they did this week.
Yeah.
Touching on Newcastle in their Champions League group, if you had to pick 2 teams to get out of that group, who are you going for?
I'm going to go PSG and... PSG. See, if I talk through
It's that second team, I think.
It is that second team. And I'm not necessarily sure that PSG get top. I just know that I think PSG will be one of those 2.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are saying that they don't think PSG are going to get out, but I think
they
people
will.
forget how much quality they still have in that team and how dominant in the French league they have been. I know they've had struggles in the Champions League, but they've never. I know against tough group, but they've still never struggled to get out of the group.
Yeah, I also think that in terms of quality, I mean, again, this is just on paper, but I feel like AC Milan, I mean, they haven't started well. They got thrashed 5-1 in the Milan derby by Inter Milan just this weekend. I saw something that apparently Zlatan Ibrahimovic came back to the club's training ground to give a motivational pep talk.
Oh my god, he needs to go away. He's so annoying.
After they got thrashed. But to be fair, it's a fantastic performance by Inter Milan, who I think will, are favourites and will go on to win Serie A this year. Thuram up top was electric. But I just think AC Milan, a lot of people have been saying that they've won the transfer window with the signings they made, and they have signed some good players. It will take maybe a bit of time for them to gel as a team with all these new players coming in. And also Dortmund, after last year's just losing out to Bayern Munich on the last day, they started all right so far in the Bundesliga. I'm still not sure midfield how they set up, because you've got Brandt, Emre Can as the defensive midfielder. I'm not sure is quite there. You've got who's next? Sabitzer, who's on loan at Man United. I mean, it's an okay midfield. I'm not sure if it's Champions League quality to go on and win it. Of course, it's not. I don't think Dortmund will win it, but
I think they've not just lost Bellingham; they've also lost Guerrero, who's been one of their best players for the last 2 seasons. He's played all over the pitch. He's really carried them in a lot of games, and I think he's going to be a big miss for them. So I think Newcastle have a chance to get. Newcastle do have a very good chance.
Talking through it, it's going to be PSG and Newcastle. And obviously Newcastle are probably favourites to come bottom. Obviously the team with the least Champions League experience, but I think it's actually that enthusiasm for being back in the Champions League that will mean that I think they will do it.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna go PSG. I'm gonna say PSG top. I'm gonna say Newcastle second, just because I think they will do it. I don't think St James Park will be a massive factor in terms of intimidating the opposition, but motivating their own players, I think it will.
Yeah.
And I think they have defensively they are solid. So if they decide going away from home that they're going to sit back and defend and go on the counter, with the likes of Anthony Gordon, Harvey Barnes, Miguel Almiron, Callum Wilson, Alexander Isak, they've got enough players to hurt people, and I think they will. So I'm going to go out there. PSG first, Newcastle second. You?
I think I would agree with you. I think it's.
Is this English bias?
I think. I'm not particularly convinced by Milan. I know they had a really good run in the Champions League last year, but I don't think I can see that again this year. I think it's between Dortmund and Newcastle for me, and I think that those will be the key fixtures. But I can see Newcastle going to Dortmund, sitting back and catching them on the break and getting a result. I think I want Newcastle to get second, so I'm going to say they're going to get second as well. I'm going to manifest it.
You're going to manifest it. Okay.
Yeah. PSG and Newcastle. Up the Geordies, come
Up
on,
the-
come on.
Maybe we'll see. They are quite annoying. I'm gonna go out there and say it.
But Greg's.
But correct. Yeah. Let's move on then. Fulham 1, Luton Town 0, and still they can't win a game, can they? I don't know. I mean, Luton had 3 big chances in this game, missed all 3, and I did say in the podcast last week when I did solo that I thought that Luton, out of these next 5 games between the international breaks, I think they have to get 6 points if they're going to stay in the league, because just to show that, to prove to themselves and prove to everyone else that they can do it. 6 points, and it's not. They probably would still be in the relegation zone, maybe, or just out of it with 6 points. But I think just to show that they can do it is important. But they've already lost one now. I mean, they've got Wolves at home next, Everton away, Burnley at home, Tottenham at home in the next 4. It's got massive, massive 4 games for Luton Town coming up.
Yeah, it's still a lot of struggles. Fulham just absolutely dominated the ball, 78% possession. Didn't particularly dominate the chances. The XG was equal for both sides, but Vinicius got the goal in the end that won it for them. But at the moment, like you say, it seems like there's no fear for Luton at all. It's when you see it in the calendar, it really does look like the easy fixture. I know we would have thought so at the start of the season, but at the moment, I think the only chance they have is we did see them play well at their first game at home, and I think that could be a good thing. Was it Wolves at home, did you say, next week?
Yeah, Wolves at home.
That they could get something out of that, and I think, like you said, they need to. If they keep going on, I think the longer they go without getting a point, the longer it's going to get in the place. Like, we still haven't got points, still haven't got points, still haven't got points. Teams look at them, oh, this team still hasn't got anything out of it.
The only team in the league who still haven't got a point.
Yeah, and it's still difficult to take positives away. It seems like it's getting a bit better week on week.
There are some positives. Yeah, I think it's a bit like Sheffield United. In fact, you can see week on week they're getting closer to getting results and wins and points. But they're not quite there. I think they're actually a little bit further away from Sheffield United. I think Sheffield United have been quite unlucky, and I think, Sheffield United have got points so far this season. So I think, well, maybe a point, not multiple, a singular.
Yeah.
So I think, Sheffield United, who we actually said in our Premier League predictions were going to finish bottom, I think I would change that now and be like, no, you know what, Luton Town are going to finish bottom.
I think we went for Luton bottom in the end.
No, we went Sheffield United.
I thought I was pretty adamant on putting Luton bottom.
No, you were pretty easy to push over.
I don't think so. I think I'm not sure.
No.
Maybe I'll have to rewatch. I'll have to rewatch.
No, I think we went Sheffield United bottom because we said there'd be an upset. Luton would do something with the first time back in the league and do the home stadium. And we were like, we'll put them 19th instead of 20th.
I must have folded too easily then, because I thought I was pretty...
It was the first podcast, I think.
I was being too nice. Now I just be like, oh, piss off, I want to put them bottom.
Yeah, and I think we should, to be fair. But I thought Kabore had a really good game.
Mm-hmm.
I think attacking-wise he did. Defensively, I thought he did a bit poor. But, I mean, going forward, I thought... he was really good. I've got it here. He's got an expected assists of 0.37, 2 clearances, 1 blocked shot, 1 interception, 2 tackles, 3 key passes, 4 out of 4 successful crosses, 2 big chances created. However, he did lose 6 of his 9 ground duels. He lost possession 11 times and he committed 3 fouls. Obviously, he's a loanee from Manchester City's academy. Attacking wise, he is really good, and he showed that against Fulham on the weekend. He's coming against Timothy Castagne, who's playing at left back instead of Anthony Robinson. But defensively, he was beaten too easily for the goal. Willian just skipped past him, went on his outside, and put the ball into the box. It is going to be one where it's going to be interesting to see. Is Rob Edwards going to release him to be attacking? Because that link between him and Carlton Morris was good. But defensively, you're going to need some more cover for him because he was a bit of a liability. And like I said, I think 3 big chances created. Carlton Morris should have scored on another day. He is the talisman. But I don't think they're going to do it. Do you think they'll... How many points do you think Luton will get?
It's only been 5 games, to be fair. Maybe by halfway through the season they could have 8 or 9 points. I think maybe. I think what's that? Another 12, 13 games that'll be. I could see them winning a couple, maybe getting a couple draws, maybe at the end of the season. I don't think they're going to get more than 30 points.
Do they sack Rob Edwards at some point?
I don't think so. I don't think I don't think it's anything to do with the system, or I think it's just they got on a really good run in the Championship last year. They carried it on through the playoffs, and they don't have the squad, really. I don't think there's too much you can particularly do with them. It's not really much like to say for me. I just think there's too much of a gap between them and sort of the teams around them in terms of quality. I think they're doing as probably as good as they could, and I think he's done a decent job. But yeah.
Do you think this speaks to a larger issue about the financial disparity between the Premier League and the Championship, and what other teams like Luton? It's a remarkable story. We're all excited that they're in the league, but if they can't even put up a fight in the league, what's the point?
Yeah, I think there's teams in the Championship who are the sort of yo-yo teams like your Southampton and your Norwich, who when they do come up, they do put up more of a fight because they have more consistent years in the Prem. They're getting that extra money. They're probably bigger clubs in terms of stature and financial power. Whereas every now and then you get your teams like your Luton. It was the same with Blackpool when they came up in 2012, 2013, around
2011,
then.
I think.
Yeah, people were saying if Holloway keeps them up, he'll get Manager of the Year. And he did a really decent job in the end. They were relegated, and it was quite inevitable because their squad just wasn't good enough, and they couldn't really do much about it. And I don't think there is too much that Luton can really particularly do about it. They're playing well. They are starting to play better. They've just got to keep going at it, keep doing what they can, and maybe they'll pick up a few points. But probably if you're in charge of that club, you're preparing for next season in the Championship.
Yeah,
I think is realistic. It's not a bad thing to say. It's no disrespect to Luton. I think even their fans would probably know that if we can stay up, it would be absolutely incredible. But realistically, it might not happen.
Yeah, and we were saying before that in previous episodes of the podcast that that before they even coming up to the league, they were already preparing for relegation, likely with the signings they brought. They didn't overspend. They've improved the stadium now to Premier League minimum requirements, which has just helped in general. And then eventually, with all this parachute payments, when they probably will go down, I mean, it's 99% sure that they probably will go down, that they can use that money to reinvest. So they're probably planning this anyway.
Yeah.
But it just, maybe it's a wider issue of like, eventually, you probably say in our lifetimes, hopefully, Wrexham would probably be in the Premier League, and they probably would put up a decent fight of it because of the fact that they've got rich American owners. And to a club that don't have rich owners like Luton have, and say maybe you do have a local businessman who owns your club, and you want to do things the right way, invest in your youth and invest in the stadium and the club facility and grow your club naturally, organically, and not pump loads of money into it. What hope is there for teams like lower down in the English Football League? So, maybe it's a future of football where everyone needs to have mega rich owners. Otherwise, there's no point. Then you can't compete.
Yeah, and it's be interesting to see if they obviously they haven't spent all that money, which I think is a good thing. I don't think they should have really pushed to stay in the league this year, but I think now that they've come up, it's done them good, like with the stadium, as you said, good experience. It's got their name probably more out there, the journey they've come on from non-league all the way up. And then next season, they can build in the Championship, spend sort of similar amounts. I think just do it slowly build up their squad, and maybe go for another promotion push in a couple years, and their squad will be better. They'll have a bit more money, and they'll be able to probably perform better. But like you've mentioned, Wrexham, it's as much as I know as we say that Luton are really struggling, they probably are going to go down. I think we'd all rather see a club like Luton be in the Prem than someone buy it, potentially like Wrexham, that we could see in sort of 4 or 5 years' time if they keep going up the leagues.
Yeah, and that's a contradiction you have. You want it to be a meritocracy. You want everyone to have the opportunity to be able to be in the Premier League, but also you want someone to make a fight of it. So, and the teams who are likely to make a fight of it, those who are rich-owned, Saudi-backed, American-backed, whoever-backed. But yeah, it's just the state of the game at the moment.
Yeah.
Fulham, though, the last little word on them. 5 games played, 7 points. We thought they'd be probably down there in the league, fighting relegation. They seem to be doing all right so far. Obviously, they've had some easy fixtures, some not so easy fixtures, but impressed with them so far?
Yeah, definitely compared to what my expectations were at the start of the season. I think that really flipped in the Arsenal game when they drew 2-2. I think that was such an impressive result and impressive performance from them. They looked really good. Playing a lot better than I probably would have predicted. I think some of the signings and the players they've kept, sort of the Castagna has come in. I think that's a really smart signing. Willian staying on. He still shows quality. He's not a world beater, but he's a really good squad player for them to have. Vinicius came in instead of Jimenez, who Jimenez hasn't played badly. Just not sort of. I think Vinicius could fill that role and play well if he keeps it up. And keeping Palhinha, which is a huge one. And yeah, they're just playing probably and performing maybe as well as they did last season, despite I think a lot of us predicting them to fall down because their expected numbers were so low compared to what they were actually producing.
Yeah, and I think it's completely right that Carlos Vinicius came in. Like you said, Jimenez had nothing wrong, but I think he did well while Mitrovic was out suspended last season, so he deserves his chance now. And I think the difference between like a Fulham and a Luton is they've got those players who can be difference makers. So you're like of Bernd Leno in goal, you've got Pauline in midfield, you've got Willian on the wing, and I think it's just like these few players, experienced professionals, arguably some of the best players in the position in the league is what Luton need, but then they never will have. But then Fulham are lucky to have these players. So hopefully Palhinha, for Fulham's sake, stays in January, doesn't have that move to Bayern Munich, even though he did sign a new contract. I wonder if there's release clause or anything, but time will tell.
Yeah.
But let's move on to the final game of the game week. Is Bournemouth 0, Chelsea 0, and Chelsea just struggling to score more goals again.
Yeah, same old story really. An XG of almost 2 in this game and still couldn't score. They seem to play quite a different system this week. No Ben Chilwell.
Yeah.
We saw Mudryk start, which we haven't seen in the last few games. Fernandes playing in more of that traditional sort of 10 role. It was definitely more of a 4-2-3-1 from Poch, which we saw sort of in pre-season, but then he seemed to change to 3-back. I didn't, to be honest, I can't lie and say I saw the game. I don't know whether
it's fair enough. I mean, you didn't miss much.
Yeah, I don't know if it was Chelsea not taking their chances or if there was if they had 14 shots with an XG of just under 2, so it seemed like quite a few of them are decent quality chances, but just couldn't take them.
Yeah, I mean, Chelsea should have scored. I mean, Nicholas Jackson had one, Levi Colwill had one. I mean, like I said, the XG was actually 1.85, so 6 shots on target, one big chance. They hit the woodwork twice. So it's one where they should have scored, and I think it's one where it will come for Chelsea eventually. Just have to be a bit patient. There's been a lot of change, and even in formation and players playing. I do think it's kind of confusing though. I mean, Levi Colwill playing left back, just play Ben Chilwell. Maybe you're worried about being too attacking. So maybe what it looked like to me was Chelsea were kind of playing with a Mali Gusto on the right would just go up forward, and then the remaining defenders would kind of make a 3 at the back. It kind of be like that 3-box-3 kind of tactic that a lot of teams have been employing this season so far, as well as last season. I'm just saying Nicholas Jackson, he's struggling to score goals, and it's now getting to the point where he's always getting in those positions. But now it's getting to the point where, okay, if you were competing for the Champions League, that you would take him out and you bring in someone else.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, there isn't that someone else because of injuries at the moment. Although Mudryk did all right, but without being too effective in the final third. Sterling, again, the main man. I thought, like I said, Fernandes did really well. I was a bit surprised that Conor Gallagher got the armband. I know Reece James has been named captain. Obviously, he's out injured, and he hopes he'll be back soon. But I thought give it to Thiago Silva.
Yeah.
But the fact that he gave it to Conor Gallagher, I thought it was really interesting, and it maybe goes to show that he has a long-term future at Chelsea, which I didn't think he had going into the season.
No, I don't think we would have thought. I think after he had that loan at Palace, we thought, oh, Palace will just sign him on a permanent. He's a good player for them, but maybe not good enough to be in the Chelsea squad at the time. Then Chelsea had that shocking season, obviously, last year, and now he seems to be like a regular singer alongside Caicedo.
Yeah.
Whether that sort of carries on, I don't know. I'm
No,
not sure.
I have no idea.
But he seems to be playing decently. Not like had an incredible season so far, but just being a solid player.
Yeah, I do worry though, with the Chelsea fan base, and I wouldn't be afraid to say it, to know Chelsea fans here, but just with the pressure of the fan base, that will Conor Gallagher become their next Havertz or Mount or Jordan Henderson, or just the player that plays week in week out, who the fans are just like, why is he playing?
Yeah.
Get him on off the team on the bench. Play the likes of Casado and Enzo together, and play someone a bit more creative up behind Jackson. And I think he's doing all right so far, but I I do question, with all the money they've spent, Chelsea, the fact they're playing Conor Gallagher, because I think he's a very good player, but I think there are more talented players at the club who I think Poch should be trying to play instead of. Because I think at the moment he has, I mean, he missed a great chance. He kind of scuffed the shot in the second half, and kind of ended up hitting Neto more than Neto trying to save it. So we'll see. We'll see how things go. But I just think Chelsea just poor to watch at the moment. They got booed off by the fans,
Yeah.
and I think that goes to show. But I think Chelsea fans have never had too much patience, so I definitely won't be clipping this bit out because I've been having Chelsea fans. But I just think,
Well, it's just, they don't have much. They're the team famous for constantly sacking their managers. They had such little patience with the squad last season. They've gone out, or in the last couple of seasons, they've gone out and spent $1 billion, and their squad is still pretty average, I would say. They are not getting the results. I don't think that half the signings are Poch's signings. I think it's Todd Bowley making himself director of football or whatever nonsense there is. And they just don't look much better than last season so far, to be honest. They've still got some good players and they've still got a decent squad, but it's just not happening for them. And you honestly wouldn't be surprised if it got to January, they're sitting in ninth and they sack Poch. And then you think, changing all these players, changing these managers is clearly not a sustainable solution for them at the moment. They've just had too much of an overhaul, too many changes, and they need to be patient. They need to finally let a manager like Pochettino, who can work with all these young players and build the team. It's not going to happen overnight. I think it was really unrealistic if Chelsea fans thought they were going to come back and get top four this season. They might, but it's going to take time. And they've had 5 games to go, and this whole squad is almost entirely new.
yeah, I agree. And I just think that, they've got to be patient. So say they are in that situation in January, I would absolutely 100% keep Poch in the job, because I think the second half of the season is going to be where Chelsea really come into it. Hopefully they have their players fully back and fit. The likes of Nkunku, who was the Chukwemeka, who got injured against West Ham, wasn't it? Yeah. Reece James hopefully stays fit, Ben Chilwell stays fit, and then we'll just see what happens.
Yeah.
I think Poch needs to decide on a formation. I think he needs to decide on the first 11. And then he needs to stick to that. And I think going forward, that'll be what Chelsea really need to do, and that's Potter's priority, I think.
Yeah, I think even no matter who the manager was, whether it was, I think even if they still had Potter, I know that they were playing a bit worse last season and the club was in a bit more disarray in itself. But I think if they would have just kept Potter and had a decent window and maybe had another season, they've got to give the managers and the squad and just let things settle a bit. There's not a sustainable solution of changing things around. And I think, whether it's Poch or someone else, they've got to have at least a full season and a half, I would say, before they can really be judged, especially with the amount of signings that have come in and the squad, how much the squad has changed. They've just got to let things settle for a little bit and just see how it goes. They haven't got European football this season. Take it as a trial run, do as well as they can in the league, maybe have a cup run. Yeah. And then next season, potentially, they could be pushing for top 4 in the league again. But just give it a bit of time and they could see it fit better.
And we should probably mention Bournemouth as well. 5 games played, no wins, 3 draws, 2 losses, and they did alright, XG of 1.04. They probably were. Not the better. They definitely weren't the better team actually, but they had chances. And they arguably
Still
should have scored. Well. And it's one where they're slowly picking up points. They're not in the relegation zone, so people aren't talking about them too much. But they need to start winning games soon.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just probably got to start taking chances, especially against Chelsea. They didn't have much of the ball, about 35-36% possession, but still were able to carve out a few chances. And it could have been a game that they nicked 1-0.
Yeah, and I think it would be really good when they have Alex Scott and Tyler Adams back in the midfield fit. And, with Slanky up front, the new wide players, that new midfield, and, a couple of additions to the defence. and with Neto in goal, I think all of a sudden then, when everyone's fit, again, we're saying this for a few teams, get the players back, get them fit. And when that happens, we can really start to see the best of the team under Iriola. And I think they will be fine, won't they?
Yeah, I hope so.
Yeah, cool. Right, well, that was it for this week's episode of the Football Fellowship podcast. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. If you're listening to us on Spotify, please give us 5 stars. And if you're watching on YouTube, please give us a like and subscribe. And we'll see you in the next one.
Cheers.